In several previous videos, I did mention that I have a titanium flat bar on my Brompton, and if applied with some weights on the two ends, it actually does flex pretty nicely, and it does offer a little bit of suspension. Obviously, that suspension is nothing like what we would like to have, and so I believe I do have a way of getting around that and to build a front suspension into the existing Brompton architecture, albeit at some cost and some effort. So this video is going to be about the details of how you could build it. This is not a model I have built yet, but it is something I am considering long term. What I would be using would be the typical handlebar suspension or a shock. This is one of them. There are many others. This is a high-end brand, so I trust them. The longer they are, the more suspension you get because the more travel you're gonna get. This is what they look like. Typically, they come with springs or elastomers, and you have a choice of a number of those depending upon how hard or soft you want the suspension to be. You might get 80 or 90 millimeters of travel, but there is a significant variation. Unfortunately, there is a weight, like in the case of everything suspension. In this case, it's going to be roughly 1 pound, the weight just for this piece. So if you want suspension on your bike, you have to become friendly to adding more weight to it. And this is typically for people for touring, obviously. The problem with these suspension attachment is this, that they are expecting the steering column to end in a vertical upright tube, and you just slide this piece, this connect, onto that tube. The problem is the Brompton has no such luxury, and that is the real problem here, that with the Brompton and with most other folding bikes, we do not have something sticking up like this. We have a horizontal bar. So what we need to do is to convert this so that we do end up with a bar that's sticking up somewhere either behind or in front of the steering column. And the easiest way to do that I can think of is to get something like this handlebar extension. So it hooks onto the existing handlebar that you have and grabs onto whatever bar you want to add to it. In our example, this would be something like, this. We would have two of those clamps grabbing onto this bar, and the rest of the bar I would cut. You could cut it off here, and then you would have one clamp. Actually, I would move it forward, so it would look something like this. And you have two clamps like this. This idea really came to me when I worked on my Zooter scooter handlebar extension. It took a bit of time and planning to do it, but I have done it. And so what we want to do is not to put another flat bar here. What we need is a T-bar. It's not going to be exactly like this, and it may not even come from the bicycle industry. It could come from any industry, honestly. I'm just looking on Amazon, but you could look on a number of sites. Obviously, you don't want this busyness. You want a clean T-bar kind of thing, more like this, but without this warping. These are actually bodybuilder accessories. But if you can buy a T-bar that fits the suspension element, we would have a T-bar something like this. And this would have an upward pointed piece. I don't know how to show it in perspective. Maybe this would show it better. So we would end up with that upward pointing piece that we need. So we would cut the T-bar somewhere right here. We cut this short as well. So we have a short T-bar with just enough of an upward tube to allow us to attach the suspension element. So we have this piece. It would just be in front of the current steering column. So you're basically you are building a fake steering column, it would be pointing toward the top. You could then attach this Connect or any of the other suspension products. They all attach like this. You would just push it down onto this tube that's sticking up, and then you could attach any kind of handlebar that you want. Obviously, this would make the frontal fold a bit difficult. You would not be able to fold the steering column all the way in, so it would not snap at the bottom. But you could still fit the bicycle under the desk at work, because just like with the birdie, it would just kind of hang down. It would not snap, but it would still hang down, and you would have a very small form. The problem is a lot of people are not going to like the handlebar being pushed so far ahead. Some people would actually like it, but some would not. And the solution for that is to get something like this, a riser bar, to apply it flat. So you would not be raising the height of it. You would have that riser bar applied like this. So it's pushed onto this, or you have a suspension mechanism here, so it's pushed ahead, and you put a bar in flat. Instead of rising, it's going to pull back. So the bar is going to look something like this. And I realize this looks primitive, but this is basically what you would end up with. You have a large variety of riser bars to choose from. So you could choose exactly the depth that you need. So your new bar, this whole suspension mechanism would be in front of the current handlebar, but you would use a riser bar to bring it back if you need it. So you could move it forward, backward as much as you want to, because you have practically unlimited choices as to what kind of handlebars to attach. Really, the hardest part for this is to find a T-bar that fits. It should fit the handlebar extender, and the T part should be adaptable for the suspension item. So it would have to be something standard. And I'm sure that is possible to find. Certainly, it should be easier to find than to manufacture. I would say the total weight you would be adding with this, you are adding 1 pound with this suspension piece, plus some extra tubing, maybe 1.5 pounds in total. So you're adding a little bit of weight, but it's not the end of the world. And you would get a great deal of comfort. I mean, to have a front suspension like this applied onto the Brompton's very rigid steering column would be an absolute game changer. You can get some dampening from a titanium bar, which is what I have, but it's not going to be nearly as comfortable as a 60 or 90 millimeter travel from a professionally designed suspension item that was designed for handlebars. And the attachment, once you have this piece that's sticking up, the rest of it is fairly easy. This is a standard size, and you have almost infinite number of choices for an aluminum or titanium bar that you could attach. In fact, you could use the Connect or any other suspension product in conjunction with a titanium handlebar, and that would even further improve the absorption of the bumps and vibrations that you have to deal with. Let me know if anybody has tried this, and I'm very curious. This is it for the current video. I'm providing links below for all of these materials, and make sure to check them out. Like, subscribe, share, and
I'll be back.